Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Better Future Conversation series. I'm super excited about today's conversation with truly one of the most visionary, maybe the most visionary educator I have ever had the privilege of meeting, Shaheen Mistri, who got started in her own journey to help transform education very early, I think at the age of 18, when she started what became the Akanksha Schools Network. And then she started and still leads the Teach for India movement and all that it encompasses, including kids' education revolution. Shaheen is also an artist, incredible. She's produced Broadway level productions with her students. The most recent I had the privilege of watching showed audiences of literally thousands in India what it would take to live into India's constitutional values of justice and liberty and equality and fraternity through transforming education. So, given the purpose of our conversations, the Better Future Conversations, is to really learn together about how to reshape education in order to put the world on a different trajectory. I can't imagine a better person to talk with than Shaheen. I still remember one of my conversations with you, Shaheen, where you said, if we wait for the adults to change the system, we'll be long gone by the time it happens. But if we enlist our young people, we could actually make it happen in our lifetimes. And that's really stuck with me. And of course, it also makes it inevitable that whenever we're having a conversation like this, we have students with us. So I want to invite into the conversation one of your current students, Shaheen. I think she's going to join us. Hi, Durva. Can you introduce yourself? Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Didi. So, my name is Durva. I am from Sitamil Compound, Mumbai Public School. I'm studying in 7th standard. So, I will start with my hobbies. I love to do yoga. I love to do dance. I love to do crafting and art. And my personalities are that I am cute as a cat and I am strong as lion. I'm confident as queen and I'm helpful as nurse.
Wow. Thank you so much, Durva, for introducing yourself. And we're going to come back to you in a bit and really want to hear more about your own views of education. But first, Shaheen, let's start with you. And I guess just to dive right into this, how do you view the purpose of education? And how has that evolved for you over time?
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. And it's so lovely to be here and very exciting for me to be here with Durva as well. When I started my work, Wendy, I guess 36 odd years ago, two things felt very important in education. One was that kids needed to have fun. I think that was one of the original ideas I thought about. And the second was they needed to really feel safe. For me, actually, when I started, it was less about education and more about that idea that every child deserves a space each day where they can just be themselves and be a child. I very quickly learned that learning is so powerful in changing children's lives. And I think I learned that from my kids. I never expected when I started my work for kids to be able to go to the same universities as we were going. I never expected them to want to uplift their families, their communities, care about what's happening in the world. I think the purpose of education for me evolved by listening to, learning from, working with children. And I think today we at Teach for India talk about self, other, and nation. By self, we mean, can every one of our children discover truly who they are? I think Durva's introduction was such a beautiful, I don't think I would have the confidence to introduce myself with adjectives like that, but that's an example. So who am I? Can I evolve who I am, my sense of purpose towards a life of my choice? So that's what we mean by self. But we think that isn't sufficient, that the purpose of education also needs to be about other. So it's not just about me, but equally about my ability to care for and embrace difference and listen to and provide opportunities for others. And finally, the purpose of education is truly to change the world, to make it better, kinder. How do our children realize that that's not a job for them 25 years down the line, but there are things that they can do today in this moment to make things around them better? So understanding the problems around you, being fired up to change them, to create positive solutions in the world, that totality for us is the purpose of education.
So powerful to think about that and just what would happen if all of the classrooms in the world were pursuing those three purposes and how different the world would become.
Can I add one thing? Because just today, I got an email. It's the first time I've got an email of this kind, but it's so pertinent here, from a grade 5 student in a high income, seems like a high income school. And this kid wrote to me saying, you probably haven't received an email like this, but I recently went and saw a school in my neighborhood and it breaks my heart. And I Googled organizations and I found you. And my appeal is, can you send a teacher to this school? And this child must be like 10 or 11 years old. So this belief that I have has come from seeing so many children who want to live in to this purpose of education. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And so a few years ago, you evolved the vision of Teach for India to be an India free of poverty and full of love, which is clearly a very, very bold vision. Can you share more about what led to that and what has shifted in the years since you embraced that vision?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, Wendy, I think the most authentic answer, of course, there was a process to arrive at that vision, but the most authentic answer is we just need to make that happen. I mean, why should anyone in 2025 be living in poverty? And why should people be living lives of fear and be the subject of violence and discrimination and inequality? It just doesn't make sense. And I think it's never really made sense to me. When I was 12 years old, I think I was asking that question, that why do I have the opportunities I have? And why do other children not have those opportunities? And so really, it's less about being worried about the size of that vision as saying that we just need to work towards that. Every step that we take towards that gets us one step closer for people to live with dignity, to not live in poverty. I was just a couple of weeks ago in one of our remote sites where children are still waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, picking waste. That waste is getting burnt in their community. There are toxic fumes that come out of that. And they go to school in the middle of all of that. Why is that still the way the world is? And how is that acceptable? And I think I just found a lot of like-minded people that got drawn to your idea, Wendy, in India, who said, no, that's not okay. People shouldn't be living like that. And so whether or not we achieve that vision in my lifetime or the next lifetime is sort of secondary to me. But having that vision, I think, has helped us ask ourselves, are we in pursuit of that? And are we here for the long game?
That's so powerful. And Durva, maybe I can just ask you, what does an India free of poverty and full of love look like to you?
India free of poverty and full of love will look like a peaceful place and like heaven, and where the people has given the opportunity for everything. There is no gender discrimination, and everyone has given a space to express their feeling, thoughts and emotions, same as love circle.
Wow. And when education is helping equip you to make that true in India, what does education look like when it does that?
It will look like a opportunity to which is given to everyone.
I want to come back to you, Shaheen, to finish, but we just thought we'd bring Durva in. So, can you share a little more about when you've experienced this kind of education, Durva?
So this is during the love circle. I have experienced this kind of education, love from music, from art, from movies, and another thing is from the practice when we were doing Teach for India 15th year celebration. During the practice, I experienced this to help each other. If someone is stuck, so I help them by learning those lines. Someone got
Yeah.
hurt, I helped her or him. Yeah.
Can you share more about, and maybe it will help to understand, Durva, your connection to Shaheen. I just learned you all that Shaheen is actually teaching alongside everything else she does, and that she's working with Durva and other students. But tell us more about this class and about what you're referring to, I think, is the love circle.
Yeah.
Can you share
So,
more about what that is?
yeah, love circle is a space where we are learning love in deeper with different kinds of things. And till now, I have learned that love is everywhere. If a painter wants to paint a painting, so there is love also because he loves to paint. That's why there is a love behind everything.
You want to give the example of what your mom did today?
Yeah. So when I was leaving to come to Shaheen Didi's house, so I have my heavy backpack. So my mother came from home and carried another backpack where she gave me one healthy tiffin and one water bottle, and this clothes also she gave me to change. So she carried me, carried the backpack
Oh,
to the school.
amazing. Now, Shaheen, how do you think about? I mean, one of the big debates in the world, as you know, is like, what is the balance between, I guess, social emotional outcomes and academic outcomes? And how do you think about that? How do you think about truly equipping kids with the broad set of outcomes needed to shape a better future and the relationship of all those outcomes to each other?
Yeah. I mean, I think we often think of it as an either or. And I've just learned that it's not that. It's just that's a false choice. It's just an and. I think when kids feel safe and they feel loved, that is the only time that you can challenge them, push them, get them to live into their greatest potential. And I think it's just absolutely core. Like that idea of connecting with your children, loving them, you being excited about going to class, them being excited to come, feels like you can't do much without that. I think again, it really is the tiny small things. Like Durva's example of her mother. It's not. I don't think we're talking about love in any big huge way, but it's like, how do you talk to your children? How do you greet them when they come in? How do you encourage them? How do you hold high expectations? All of that is love, and that feels like really, really important. I think in today's world, I mean, we see this with the research and the statistics. Like, what's the point of kids doing well if they're not going to be happy? I think both of those things need to matter equally to us. And if we love our children, we want them to be happy. And so, yeah, I think it's just a beautiful opportunity for people to say, through content, through culture, through opportunities, how do we weave socio-emotional skills into everything?
And I know from seeing some of your work over time that we've seen just such hugely tangible evidence of the degree to which a focus on these broader outcomes also kind of accelerates academic achievement. And I wonder if you can help bring that to life for us. Like when you think about the kids you're working with, what you've seen, whether it's in your current example of this circle or in other experiences, like how have you seen these outcomes kind of work together?
I mean, I just think the higher order thinking that kids demonstrate when they want to learn. And kids want to learn when they feel safe, happy, joyful. In today's class, we've just come from class today, and we did love for storytelling. So the kids wrote their own stories today. But the debrief was around like what stopped you today in class from writing a great story. And so the children started by saying things at the level of doing, right? Like I wasn't able to complete my work, but we went deeper and we challenged them to say, but what's the being reflection under the doing? And that's hard work when you're in grade 6 and grade 7 to think about that, to identify that actually the reason I wasn't able to write a whole story is because I wasn't focused or I was distracted or I was worried about what my peers would say. And I think that self-work, the ability to embrace challenges comes from the fact that they really like being in class. They have fun in class. They like each other. They like me. I love them. It's my favorite day of the week. And I think all of that really matters. I actually think you can challenge kids at the rate of your ability to love them, not more, like not in a sustainable way. You may drive short-term outcomes, but if you want to build enduring mindsets and skills, I think they come from that space of love.
It's so powerful. What do you think in your experience, like what do you think it takes to scale that kind of education? Like what you're doing yourself with your kids, like when you think about like, what is it going to take to scale this across India and across the world? What have you come to think is the key to that?
I don't know, Wendy. I think I've shifted the way I think about scale. Like I feel like really deep work with kids scales. It just scales in a very different way. Like it multiplies. And so this year, like at Teach for India, we feel very proud that we have 70 of our students who are today fellows. That's like a multiplier. I know that one day Durva is going to do something incredible in the world. Like she just is. I know that she is. But it's taken and it's going to take so many people investing so deeply in her forever for that to actually happen. And so I've just come to, my dear friend Nemo, he writes a song called Planting Seeds. That idea that like we are here to plant the seeds with intentionality and with love. And then there's a lot of faith in this work. And that's where I sort of am. I'm like, I don't think we actually need to find big solutions. We just need many, many, many people doing things with great love. We were just a week ago at our leadership team retreat at one of our alumni. He runs a small school in a remote village in Uttarakhand. And we were in these classrooms, and the whole philosophy of the school is to balance head, hand, heart. These kids in the middle of nowhere had like binoculars and microscopes, and they were learning about animal shelters. They were running around outside. They were coming back. They were thinking critically. They were engaged. They were joyful. Like to me, like that's what learning is. Like learning is the most beautiful thing in the world. But somewhere over time, we've lost that idea of just how beautiful learning can be. Like, yes, it's challenging to be a teacher, but much more than that, it's just joyful to be a teacher. And I think a lot about how do we share that message? Like, I've been thinking a lot about, do we over-index on the challenge of the work and under-index on just the possibility of the work? Like, greater thing can you do in the world than leave a legacy in the minds and hearts of children? Like, there's no greater thing you can do in the whole world. And I think if you believe that and live into that, and then are also empowered by this idea that you don't need to change the whole world, you just need to take small steps forward every day. And those small steps will add up if enough people do them. I think for me, that's been a big shift in my journey.
Yeah. Well, what you're suggesting is so different from where most people focus when they think about improving education. Like, and just to highlight, you're saying people doing things with great love, like many more people. And we try to make this something that we can, I don't know, AI is going to solve all our problems, or, you know, this particular curriculum, but it takes people with heart and passion to make this happen. I'm curious, I want to come back on this, but Durva, what would you say that it actually, like, if you were giving teachers advice about what they need to do to give students the kind of education that we're talking about, what would you say?
So I think that the teachers first have to make a bond with the children, a type of connection that the children will be comfortable to share their own feelings, to share their own issues. So I think that I will give a suggestion to the teachers to make a bond to give this kind of a education, so they can freely uh, express their feelings, express their emotion, express their thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so
I think it
powerful.
goes both ways. I feel like when we hold our children to doing that for us as well, you know, like when we let go a little bit of control, like especially with love. Like a beautiful example from just last week is a teacher in Durva's school got badly injured. She got burnt. And we had just done the song Thumbelina, and we'd made our own Thumbelinas because we were talking about love. And they on their own, like, made Thumbelinas for this teacher, wrote notes for her to get well. And so I feel like if we enable our kids to also inspire us, refill our cup, take a little bit of the weight off us as educators for needing to be the experts, needing to figure everything out, and make our classrooms more many to many, where like Durva may be good at yoga, but someone else may be good at math, and someone else may be really compassionate, and everybody can learn from everybody. What does that paradigm of learning look like? Not just in a classroom, but within a school, within a system, where everyone's leading and everyone's following.
This is one of the biggest things I feel like I've learned from you and the Kids Education Revolution and from the students of Teach for India. I still remember sitting in a circle with the Kids Education Revolution students, facilitating a discussion with all of these veteran teachers in India. And the teachers were expressing all sorts of things. And one of the students said, you know, maybe things would be better if you didn't try so hard. And they were trying to articulate. They said this was such love, like such love. And I mean, the teachers themselves were crying by the end of this, but they were just basically saying, you're feeling so much responsibility. Give us more of the responsibility. But this idea of true partnership is so powerful.
Yeah, I mean, Durga, you want to talk about like how you all are leading circles for the school now?
Yeah. So I and one of the student of the love circle, Sakshi, we both are leading the journey of love. This class with our own 7th standard class. We are teaching them what we are learning in love circle. So our perspective is that to spread love circle all over the world, so everyone will get this chance and everyone could learn love deeper and lead with love.
I mean, that's like a multiplier, you know, like that's why I feel like when you go deep and something is meaningful to kids, like these kids decided on their own. Like we haven't planned these classes with them. Now 3 groups of kids have done these classes in their school, and that will multiply. So I think just having faith that like small and deep really matters. And of course, you want to keep pushing to do as much as you can do, but not at the cost of really doing what you need to do to fully unleash a child's potential.
Mm. And can you say more about how you see students kind of leading the education revolution, Shaheen, and maybe a little bit more about kids' education revolution?
Yeah, sure. So 10 years ago, we started a program called the Kids Education Revolution. And really the single idea was if we just partner with our kids, we can change the education system. Like it was as simple as saying the shift is from we do this work for our kids to we do this work with our kids. And to illustrate that in the context of India, we have 260 million school going children in India, right? You can either think of that as a huge, overwhelming burden, right? Like we have to fix this problem for 260 million children. Or you can flip the paradigm and say we have 260 million Durvas who can be sitting next to us getting an excellent education to all children in the country. And suddenly that's so empowering. So that's the idea. What does that look like? Really, we're experimenting with many things, but at the level of classroom, it looks like moving from a teacher at the front of the class holding responsibility to everyone a learner in the class, everyone teaching, everyone learning. At the level of school, it looks like a school principal saying, here are the 3 problems in my school. I'm going to literally put those problems in the middle of the circle and ask teachers, students to solve them with me. At the level of system, it looks like educational policies being written by adults and kids jointly, where both are listening to each other, both are bringing their unique gifts together to strengthen how we look at education. So it really is a revolution which says that kids don't need to just be the recipients of this work. They can actually be partners in this work.
Yeah, so powerful. Let's go to audience questions, and then we can circle back on some of this. So I'm just going to bring in questions for both of you. First of all, from Sarah, how can children be involved more in making the world a more equal and equitable world despite numerous challenges?
Children can be involved by first they have to learn deeply love, and so they can lead with love with everyone. As I and Sakshi are taking classes, they can also take, but if they have no time or they don't have that much means, power to do, so they can at least try, or at least in their daily life, they can just tell everyone that in day to day life, to our parents, to our friends, that love is so deep. We can express our love from music, from art, and yeah, they have to practice love every day.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I like that idea of practicing love every day. I feel like sometimes the most profound things are the simplest, and certainly the world needs a lot of love. And if kids just did that, practice love every day, I do think that would shift things. I also think what we've learned is that awareness is a huge part of this. Like, how do we make our kids really aware of the problems and opportunities in the world around them? What is the current reality in a way in which they get excited about solving what they want to solve, and so we've had children get excited about creating shelters for animals. We've had kids get excited about gender equity. I mean, whatever they choose comes first from a place of awareness. And I think the second is like teaching kids the process of understanding an issue and attempting to solve it. Like for me, actually, it's less about them driving tangible change while they're in school I think while you're in school, your biggest job is to learn. But if over 12 years, you are learning again and again how to be aware of an issue, how to prototype a solution, how to reflect on it, how to share your learnings, how to go back. If you're learning that process of change making, then undoubtedly, whatever comes your way as an adult, your orientation to change is going to be different. So that's something that I think a lot about. And I think what enables that is really like not thinking that children are not capable because of age or because of the background that they come from, like really believing that children are capable. I think a lot of the reason why kids don't shine and live into like changing the world is they haven't really been given permission to do that by adults. So how do you set a really, really high bar and believe that kids can achieve at those levels and drive change at those levels?
This question kind of relates to what you've been speaking to, but let me ask it in case it inspires even more specific answer. So Lavanya is asking, do you believe children can be intentionally taught to love, collaborate, and embrace humanity at an early age rather than having to unlearn negativity and biases later in life? And if yes, what practices or environments do you think are most powerful in nurturing this early love and compassion?
I mean, I think children learn mostly from who you are as the adult around them. I think that's what makes this work so hard to scale. Like, actually, that is the hardest thing, right? Because if you want children to embrace love or embrace forgiveness or be compassionate, then you need to genuinely be on that journey with them. You don't need to be perfect. You can make mistakes. In fact, I think kids learn a lot from your mistakes, but you do need to be on the path with them, doing that self-work yourself on the journey. And so is it teachable? Yes, but I think it's more like learned than taught. And it's learned through observation. I also think it's learned through conversation, holding space at the beginning of the class, at the end of the class, to really talk about things that matter. Asking children, what's something you did this week that lived into this idea? What's something you did this week that didn't? And holding that without judgment, but just as a learning. Can we learn from the journey of being human? And I think that that idea feels really important to give our children, because otherwise, all of these ideas of like love, forgiveness, can be very intimidating, right? We're not telling kids you need to be loving all the time. We're just saying practice little steps of love. Be aware when you hurt somebody. Say sorry if you do. What does that journey look like with your kids?
Yeah. I love how you're demystifying this, like modeling conversations, fostering reflection. I mean, one thing that is on my mind, like I think about all the new teachers and all the teachers in general who have so much on them, like so much responsibility. They're trying to get from point A to point B and following a curriculum and achieving certain like measurable outcomes academically. How do you think about teaching in this way within the constraints of the current system? Like, what advice would you give to people who are listening to this and just feeling like, I'm so overwhelmed already?
I think this is the thing that makes it not overwhelming, like genuinely. Like, this is what brings joy. And I think when you think of it as something extra, it becomes, oh my gosh, I can't fit anything extra in. But it's not extra. It's just woven into every single thing you do, right? Your kids are walking into class every day. What expression is on your face when they walk in? That's love, right? When you're asking your kids to do something, are you saying please and thank you and genuinely meaning it? That's love. Are you listening when your kids are talking? That's love. So I don't think it's extra time. I think it's a different way of being. And I think it's actually a really joyful way of being, because you're giving up control, which is hard. But when you give up control, there are like suddenly like 25 kids that are sharing the responsibility with you happily and joyfully. So actually, I just think it's a much, much easier way to teach than the traditional model.
And
I think it's like,
hard.
No, I would just, I think it's actually, Wendy, for me, it was just about holding the question. How can I lead with love through everything I do in class? And the answer will evolve. Like it may not evolve on day one. I don't think there's a playbook for how to do it, but I do think holding the question and saying, what does love look like in content? What does love look like in culture? What does love look like in the opportunities I give my kids? You will realize that it's actually very, very tiny things. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think? What are like the tiny acts of love?
Micro practices.
Micro practices, yeah.
So micro practices of for love are to say sorry when your mistake is there, to say thank you, the golden words, to help anyone, the stranger also. If you don't know someone, still you have to help someone. These are small practices you can show love, and just giving a sip of water, just helping someone, just smiling, just saying good morning, just saying hi. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask you though, Shaheen, because I mean, you've been through such a journey for 36 years, as you say. And I wonder what kind of work on yourself has enabled you to be, because to operate with love every day and be at your best every day, despite many challenges that come your way and that come the way of the students in your classes and all, also takes a lot of self-work, I'm assuming. And I wonder what advice you would give people around, I guess, the work they need to do on themselves to be able to show up that way.
Yeah. No, thank you for that, Wendy. I think that is definitely true. I think it is a lot of self-work. I think the starting point is to believe that and to create time for that. Each one of us, can choose our own path to do it. Like for me, a lot of the self-work came from continued work with children. So at any given point, I work directly with a group of children, usually for about 2 years. I think a lot of what I have learned about what it means to truly be the human being I want to be, I learn from children because I think there's tremendous wisdom in them. So that's been a part of my self-work. I think spending time with people that embody the things that I really believe in. So everything I'm saying on this call has been stolen, borrowed, like nothing is my own. I've just been blessed to have truly noble friends that I have learned so much. And I've prioritized spending time with people who just live in ways that I want to embody and I want to choose to be. And so that's been a second. I think the third has been just routines, like daily routines. I think with this work, we feel there isn't time for that. That's made a huge difference in my journey, like how I start my day, how I end my day, whether I take small pauses, whether I exercise, whether I sleep enough, like those basics to be able to maintain the energy over 35, 40 years, which is like our hope for all our young people. I do think that really matters. And then the biggest one for me has actually been like the mindset shifts and working on some of those ideas, right? So for example, the world is in a place of scarcity. To know there is abundance if you look for it. That way of seeing the world has been really empowering for me. It's made me go into situations not over focusing on what's wrong, but looking at what's actually there. So some of those, like big ways. I would call them like ways of seeing the world. From challenge to possibility, from scarcity to abundance, from fear to love. Those have been, I think, the hardest shifts. From big to small has been another one for me that has been so empowering. It's like, it's counterintuitive, but the more I've let go of like the need to find the big puts a lot of stress on you. But no, in this moment, I can do small things for the people around me and they will go somewhere and that will lead to where it needs to lead. That was another big shift for me. So I think it's been a combination of people, community, relationships, mindset shifts, and actually the discipline to have daily practices. And again, all rooted in at any given time, is there something that is keeping me centered in children? Because what I learned 30 years ago, the world is in such a different place. Kids are in a different place. Education is in a different place. So that ongoing practice of work with kids has been very central to that.
Yeah, there's so much wisdom in what you're sharing. And also just, it's such an illustration, I think, of the power of playing the long game of this work. Like when you think about just how much experience and wisdom you can bring to this over time. Okay, let me get back to there's a growing number of questions here, so I'm going to try to get at them. Sanjana is asking, how do we inspire people to believe in the potential and power of student leadership to bring in the voice of children into decisions and into spaces, not as tokenistic, but truly believing in the leadership of students?
Yeah. I mean, I would just say start doing it yourself. What I found to be the least effective is telling people about this idea. What I found to be the most effective is just doing it yourself and creating opportunities for people to see that partnership actually works. And we're not saying that the educator doesn't matter. We're saying the opposite. We're saying like an educator brings in very different things from what a student brings in. And together that's so powerful. I think in theory, nobody disagrees with this, but it doesn't happen in practice because people haven't immersed and seen it to be possible. So I would start with really small things, get a group of 3 educators and 3 students in a circle and say, what is a problem one of you has? And let's discuss. And I think when adults see that students had a different perspective, they often bring more idealism to a conversation. They often bring joy and fun, things that like adults slowly lose over time. And adults will bring a realism and a wisdom and an experience and a lived reality that is complementary to what children bring. And then when I say do it yourself, I mean like really look in the mirror and ask yourself, are you giving children opportunities to lead? Because even as someone who believes so deeply in this idea, I don't do it so much of the time. I still jump back in and want to take control or, find myself talking more than a student next to me, it's just not easy. So holding the mirror and saying like, am I living into that? Even if I'm not exactly sure what Durva is going to say, am I okay not scripting what she's saying and not asking her what her answers are going to be before? Because I believe that she needs to be her authentic self in this conversation. Those kinds of things I think are perhaps a place to start.
And I'm looking at Durva. Do you have advice for us as adults trying to figure out how we can engage you all's leadership?
Yeah. So I have one message actually that everyone should lead with love, lead with kindness, help everyone. And as for the teachers, I think that to make a bond like mother and child, best friend and friend, or or drawing or colors. There are many examples actually.
Yeah.
So I think that there should be a bond. Bond is very important in everyone. Connection, bond, love, and everyone should lead with love, help everyone, and be together, don't discriminate everyone. So I think, yeah.
Yeah. Durva, what you're describing is literally the foundational insight. And it's, of course, what Shaheen has spoken about so much as well. But as we've looked at the most transformational classrooms around the world, they are classrooms where relationships between the teacher and the students are incredibly strong. So it resonates so much and is just such a powerful message. Another question from Kalpana. What conversations are you having with the children you work with, Shaheen, about their aspirations? And how do you envision these conversations shaping the future of India?
Honestly, like we right now in class, we're talking less about like what kids want to do and more about like who children want to be. Um, because that's a little bit the nature of the curriculum that we're trying to develop. But like today, Durva and I were talking, and she was talking about like wanting to learn coding. And what else? What are your aspirations that you were talking to me about today?
I want to learn coding. I want to be businesswoman also, and my role model is my brother because my brother also wants to be businessman, and now he's making website and selling to other means countries and
Yeah.
Amazing.
So I feel like the really important thing is, do children believe that they can have a big dream? And are we giving them the tools to research and explore on their own? The vast number of new jobs that exist in the world. So we actually in our class focus a lot on getting the kids excited about researching different things, learning about new countries, learning about just different aspects of life so that their exposure is broader. So I think that's one part of it. I feel like asking kids, what do you want to be, is a somewhat helpful question. But more important than that, it's getting them to be like really curious about who they want to be really curious about who they are, and to understand that the profession they choose needs to be at the intersection of what interests them, what they're good at, and what their family perhaps wants for them as well, because that's the reality within which they live. And so helping them understand all of those pieces, I think, is what feels really important in them taking that next step. But I really want like my kids to be independent and happy. Like those are the two, well, independent, interdependent, and happy. Like these three things, like independent in their ability to be learners no matter what, right? Because they have the tools in today's world at their disposal to learn whatever they want, to transport themselves to any idea or any part of the world. Interdependent because I want to leave them with a community. Like I want this class to be there for each other for the rest of their lives. That's my aspiration for them. And so the bonds that Durva's talking about, whether it's with her teachers, her school leader, other kids in the classroom, are they deep enough to endure forever? That's a really big goal. And happy. Like I just want them to be happy. I don't want them to be like successful and unhappy. I want them to be happy. And as part of that, I think success will be a part of that.
And how do you think about, I mean, there's so much in there, but we've often talked about shifting our education system from one that's about individual attainment and achievement towards one that is about our collective welfare, like improving our collective welfare. How do you think about that?
I mean, I think both really matter. I think, we can only shift as a collective if as individuals we're sort of shining our greatest light on the world. And so I think like, a friend recently challenged me to not see like self and other as two separate things, but see other as a part of self. Like to be really fulfilled myself, I need to have community, relationships, purpose, the ability to contribute to others. Like the totality of that constitutes a whole self. And I found that a beautiful way of seeing it. So I do think the individual matters. Like one of the big shifts for me, Wendy, was thinking that first kids have to focus on themselves and then they can help the world. I think I realized that it was more nuanced than that over time because I saw both to be true. I saw cases where, yeah, kids did need to be ready and be strong and be good communicators and be courageous. And then they were able to do really interesting things. But I also found that when kids are in service of something bigger than themselves, even at a very young age, they grow in their own leadership in like really accelerated ways. You know, we've had grade 3 classrooms that have created a sign language because they had a hearing impaired child in class, or grade 5 children that have attempted to get mountains of garbage cleared by the government, or a grade 4 student who, when we as adults were really proud of ourselves because we'd done a garbage drive, this child came to me and said, "Did you notice that in feeling good about yourselves, you've displaced the ants' homes? And those ants are not happy." And I was like, wow, like, how did she have that level of awareness to actually understand that? So I see it more as a cycle now. You sort of like find your light, spread your light. But when you spread your light, you find your light. And that cycle feels like a really beautiful purpose of education. And, you know, Teach for All, I've like also seen so many examples of this around the world. Like one of the most stark for me remains a visit in New Zealand where the grade 10 children were building a house. That was their grade 10 syllabus. That was it. Like they were building a 3-bedroom house, and their entire curriculum was learning the skills, the values to build that house. And their exam at the end of the year was the family that's going to live in this home. Are they going to like it? Is it going to leak when it rains? That was their exam. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, how incredible is that?
Yeah.
In India, we feel you're successful when you get a 96% over a 95% on a pen and paper test. But here's how they were thinking about,
I
really
think one of the things that's underlying some of what you're sharing is also a shift from a competitive frame in our education systems to a kind of interdependent, collaborative frame. And I'm just thinking more and more about this and about whether, in fact, the competitive systems that our schools have set up might be undergirding the massive mental health crisis that we have, where students just feel ranked and compared when they want to feel a sense of belonging.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. I feel that is true. Like, to me, the shift is from seeing school as achievement to seeing school as learning. Like those two are very different, right? If I'm learning, I'm thinking about where is Durva today versus where was she like 2 weeks ago, her individual learning journey. And it's not about whether she's at the top of her class or at the bottom of her class. It's about like each child's learning journey. I think if we were able to make that shift from achievement to learning, we would really revolutionize school. But I think that's a larger issue because like what society values is what gets mirrored back in schools. So while many of us are trying to fix schools, I think we need to change like what society values more broadly for higher education to change and for then school to actually shift and change.
That will be the subject of our next conversation because that's such an overwhelming challenge. And it's hard to think how to really shift our schools without making that broader shift. We're out of time. Any last word, you all, as you talk with this group of incredible educators from around the world and the many others who will watch this on video, if you had one thought to share as you send us off about what it's going to take to truly transform education, what would you say?
To change, if you want to change education and make it great for all children, what would you do?
I will make it a little bit fun and full of colors and songs and pictures, like love circle also, because in that we learn new things. And I think also that to make every education differently. So I think that on every day we need to teach different to every student, so they get more engaged with the education, engaged with the studies. So I think that we have to make studies more enjoyable and fun for the students.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to just go with stuff that Durva has shared in the conversation, Wendy. I think she talked about bonds. I think relationship and connection is the starting point. I think holding the question of how do we bring love into the education system, move it from a system that is led by fear to led by love. And I really do think we undervalue fun and joy in the education system. And if we did that, the overwhelming challenge would feel very different for us every day.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for all that you've shared. So appreciate